The latest updates on the NBA media rights. What does it spell for Turner with NBC bidding and putting their best foot forward? The WNBA announces their 14th franchise across the border in Canada coming in 2026. A new NIL lawsuit brings forth more malaise to the college season coming up for football in 2024-2025. Is it okay for sports analysts to show off their hometown fandom live on the air? We'll discuss. And turmoil in the Arena Football League as four Georgia Force players talk about the conditions that they had to endure playing in the Arena Football League, and a major media advisory coming up after the show is over concerning coast-to-coast entertainment. That and more, folks, on Press Row, live on a Thursday, right here and right now. This Coast to Coast Entertainment Network program is brought to you by Beside Me Bracelets. Our bracelets are handmade for any occasion. Use the promo code Coast to Coast for 15% off. Visit their website at besideme.com. Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry. With 24-hour shopping available, use the code 160920 and show her some love, like she showed us. Reaper Apparel Company, a commitment to live your most authentic way every single day. Visit reaperapparelco.com for more information and a look at all of their apparel offerings. And by Good Day Embroidery, your local source for custom embroidery, screen printing, and more. Log on to gooddayembroidery.com for more information. Happy Thursday, gang, and welcome into Press Row live on the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network on a fired up Thursday, May 23rd, 2024. Yours truly, Callan McClurg, in the home studio here in San Diego, hoping all is well with you today. Again, folks, as a reminder, coming up after the show concludes today, we have a brief media advisory that we're going to be announcing now that we actually have it set in stone as of within the last 15 minutes here of our big announcement about the Elite Draft League podcast. We have some more about that we're going to bring your way after the show does conclude here this afternoon. But again, folks, we have 5 great topics on the table this afternoon to talk about as we get through the sports media and sports business perspective of the biggest stories in sports. And as always, folks, we welcome your input as always, questions, comments, or concerns in the live chat box via Facebook, Twitter, or Facebook, YouTube, I should say, and via the Callan Sports Twitch channel as well. With that in mind, folks, let's jump into the big board of topics on this May 23rd. And we'll start, of course, with the big story, though, in the NBA, which is an update to the NBA media right deals. But at this rate right now, folks, the NBA right now is finalizing contracts with Disney, NBC, and Amazon, potentially leading to legal action from Warner Brothers Discovery. ESPN is set to pay at least $2.8 billion annually for the league's A-game package, including the NBA Finals, the Conference Final, weekly primetime games, the WNBA, and shared international rights. As of right now, NBC's proposed B package is set to be worth about $2.5 to $2.6 billion annually, including a basketball night in America or Sunday night basketball, much like the NFL product they offer. And following the NFL season, 2 primetime windows a week, conference semifinals, and a conference final series. While Amazon right now is looking to be having a deal worth at least $1.8 and $2 billion, likely including the Emirates in-season tournament, the SoFi play-in tournament, first-round playoff games, the WNBA, and other international rights. The final tweaks are expected to be finalized in the coming days or week, with all three networks going to their respective leadership groups for contract approval. The league, though, will take NBC's contract to WBD to see if WBD CEO David Zalosvy can match it in total value. If Warner Brothers Discovery does lose the rights, the NBA, or does lose the NBA, the 2024-25 season will be the final year under its current deal before, of course, that would fizzle out at this rate. Charles Barkley, folks, has been very active and very, very animated over the last couple days. I believe earlier today, even on Wednesday, Charles came out and really, I think, body slammed the WBD leadership about if they lose the media rights of the NBA, that it'll be on them. And also that Chuck is also in line right now, per reports too, to potentially keep the Inside the NBA crew and show going on his own production company's platform. But, folks, this should be no surprise, though, that Amazon and now Netflix are getting involved with sports leagues at this rate. But I really do hope, folks, and I know that my good man James Gonzalez agrees, that Turner needs to figure this out and keep the NBA somehow on their stations. Because if they lose the NBA after having like a multi-decade agreement between the late 80s into the 90s and now, that would be something. But also, I wonder about NBC's involvement. Is this going to be actual NBC? To quote John Schaefer of KGB AM San Diego Sports 760 on his talk show on Wednesday, Schaefer said it's so good, though. Is this really NBC? Or is this all going to be NBC, but only on Peacock? You know, is this going to be a Peacock-only deal with NBC or with actual linear NBC? So while the league is finalizing these contracts, folks, there is also some potential legal action from Warner Brothers Discovery that they could perhaps sue NBC or sue the NBA if they are not involved in the media right negotiations. Now, I'm not surprised about ESPN. Again, that is probably the main saving grace of this, that ESPN's package will be the same. They'll have the NBA Finals between ESPN and ABC, the Conference Final Series, primetime games Wednesdays and Saturdays, WNBA coverage, and shared international rights. But the B package, though, it looks great. I like the idea of like a basketball night in America or Sunday Night Basketball like the NFL already has. But after the NFL season does conclude, now NBC can keep their sports portfolio going by having basketball on, you know, BNA, Basketball Night in America, or SNB, Sunday Night Basketball. But still, it just does not feel right. I know about, you know, John Tesh and the Round Ball Rock soundtrack and all of that good stuff right now. But then, though, I don't know how to feel about Amazon and Netflix getting involved with sports, because I know, of course, that this has happened with ESPN Plus and Peacock and all this sort of stuff, though. But also, it looks like, though, that the streaming platform here in Amazon, they're kind of getting like the bare bones here. You get like $1.8 or $2 billion, but you're only going to be really including the in-season tournament, the play-in tournament, the first-round playoff games, WNBA action, and other international rights. I kind of wonder, though, if Amazon is kind of a little bit in over their head here, because they could probably say, wait a minute, why are we only getting the bare bones? Honestly, I think it's for the simple fact, though, that not everybody has cut the cable yet, which is why I think that the Amazon deal, I think, could go away, and that could become TNT. But also, I think about what James has been saying, though, over the week, though, is mainly about the simple fact as well. You know, the TNT has been a loyal partner of the NBA since the late 80s. And I know that a lot of people thoroughly enjoy the commentary team of Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, Shaq, and Chuck on TNT. And for the fact, though, that if WBD does not match the NBC offer or even Amazon's offer, we're looking here at losing a very big NBA media partner. And I don't blame this at all, folks, on NBC. I do, though, still have my reservations about a league fully diving into Amazon Prime Video or even Netflix because a lot of people still have not cut the cable. And also, I would feel like, though, from Amazon's perspective, why in the world are we bidding this much money to only likely get IST games on Tuesdays and Fridays in the middle of November and December? Why are we only getting the play-in tournament for the postseason? Why are we getting, like the bare bones, 4 versus 5 or like underwhelming first-round playoff games? WNBA, that's great. We already have a deal with them already on Prime Video and international rights. So I like what ESPN has and even what NBC has. I am more concerned about a streaming platform having a full hand now in the cookie jar when it boils down to a full season media deal. From both perspectives. For the consumer, I've not cut my cable, put the games back on TNT and TBS and True and Turner. But then from Amazon's perspective, so we're going to fork out $1.8 to $2 billion, and our package likely only includes in-season tournament games that people do not like except for yours truly, the postseason play-in tournament, probably a very underwhelming first-round playoff matchup. WNBA, that's great. We already have the rights to them and other international rights. If I'm the NBA, I don't do Turner this dirty. I don't turn my back on a loyal partner of my league to go to the shiny new object that is streaming platforms, which is also some small concern I have again with NBC. To my friend John Schaefer's point that he made on the radio here in San Diego on Wednesday. Is this actually NBC, like Channel 7 in San Diego, Channel 4 in Los Angeles County? Is this actually NBC, or is this NBC using their name to disguise it from Peacock? Which, again, would lead me down this rabbit hole. Okay, we're going to have another league on a streaming platform for Sunday night basketball night in America. 2 primetime windows, the conference semis and 1 conference final series. So I think that Turner can easily buck the Amazon deal. And I really think that they could easily buck the NBC proposal because people have still not fully cut the cable. I make the comparison all the time that my folks and I have an a la carte. We have cable. We have select streaming platforms. But I know James asked me, I think, back earlier this month on C2C at Night about if I ever thought that a media company or a streaming platform would get a full season or that every league would eventually go to streaming. And I said you can't do that because you would be alienating a full entire audience of consumers who are still paying for cable. But also, I don't think want to be forking out all this money to get every platform possible because of how the media rights have been distributed recently with the NFL and now even here in the NBA. So no surprise with ESPN. That package deal is totally fine in my opinion. I'm just hesitant though about NBC using their name and branding and being on cable to kind of disguise, well, hey, it's going to be NBC, but you also have to get Peacock if you don't have Peacock yet. But I love the idea, though, for the basketball night in America, Sunday night basketball following the NFL season, their 2 primetime windows a week. However, though, I really think that Turner can easily beat that Amazon deal. Not for the fact, though, of like, well, it's IST games and play-in tournament games and some mediocre first-round playoff game, and then maybe the WNBA comes on board in the international rights. I just still think, though, about what I said, though, about the Chiefs playing the Dolphins on Peacock. Sports bars and restaurants who probably don't have the platforms at their disposal yet. And better yet, for the fact that TNT has been a loyal contributor to the NBA product since '89. I know it will boil down to dollars and cents, folks, but it just doesn't, to me, it makes absolutely no sense that you can, as a league, turn your back on a media partner who's been loyal to your soil since '89 in TNT to go to the new, shiny, beautiful thing that is streaming platforms. But again, I also view, though, from Amazon's perspective, why in the world should we fork out this much money to get this crap of a package? IST games that I know I said back in November or back in earlier in the season, I thought helped out with viewership and helped out with attendance when he put some sort of, incentive on the line in the IST. Then he got the play-in tournament and then some first-round playoff games, which I think would probably be the lesser of the top talented teams playing in the first round. So in my perfect world, folks, it'd be ESPN, NBC, and TNT. Because again, I love the ambition of Netflix to get in now with the WWE, and they're getting in, I think, too, with other leagues right now. And Amazon already having deals with the Yankees to show games on Prime Video, the WNBA with Prime Video at this rate. But it's almost like you're biting off more than you can chew right now, if you ask me, when it boils down to Amazon now trying to get involved here. And that TNT and Warner Bros. Discovery, they can, I think, easily outbid Amazon. And I don't even think they could even outbid NBC. But I think that Charles Barkley is right, though. If WBD loses the NBA, they have nobody to blame but the higher-up management of WBD. CEO David Zavlav, who can try to match it in total value. But I also think they'll let the NBA, though, I think can get some blame here. You don't turn your back, though, on somebody who has been a partner in crime for you since 1989 to go to the new shiny object that is here with Amazon and streaming platforms in 2024. But once more, everybody, the NBA is looking to finalize contracts with Disney, NBC, and Amazon, potentially leading to potential legal action from Warner Bros. Discovery, who again operates TNT. ESPN will get the A package for about $2.8 billion, which will include the NBA Finals, the Conference Final Series, weekly primetime games, WNBA games, and shared international media rights with NBC, and potentially Peacock getting the B package between $2.5 and $2.6 billion, likely including a Basketball Night in America or Sunday Night Basketball following the NFL season, 2 primetime windows a week, conference semifinals, and 1 conference final series. But now Amazon has right now leapfrogged TNT at this rate for about $1.8 and $2 billion, likely including the Emirates Airlines in-season tournament, the SoFi play-in tournament, first-round playoff games, the WNBA, and other international rights. Tweaks are expected to be made and finalized in the coming days or week, with all 3 networks going to the respective leadership groups for contract approval. The league will also take NBC's contract to WBD to see if they can match it in total value between $2.5 and $2.6 billion. And if WBD does lose out, 24-25 will be the final year of TNT and WBD having the NBA on their platforms. Which, again, I mainly think that they could easily buck this Amazon deal. Because, again, I think, though, just with the fact that WBD can have overflow coverage if one game goes to overtime, for example, and you have that doubleheader window, again, that 4 o'clock Pacific time window, 7 o'clock window, you can move the other game till the other game in front of it finishes and move them to True TV or TBS or any other program or channel you have at your disposal. And I also, again, just want to say again, not everybody has cut the cable all the way through and through yet. And again, I think that easily that Turner and WBD can overtake that Amazon deal. I don't know why they're so hell-bent on the NBA, on the NBC package. At this rate, buck the trend and let them just take over Amazon. Again, I love the ambition of Amazon, but once more, not everybody has, again, severed that cable yet, and not everybody now wants to fork out more money to add more and more and more streaming platforms to their Apple TV, for example. Let's, folks, move on to the other side of basketball. The WNBA officially announced on Wednesday morning that the city of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, was named as the 14th league franchise that will debut in 2026, which marks the first team for the league outside the U.S. and second one in the recent wave of expansion, including the Golden State Valkyries, who will begin play in 2025 in San Francisco, California. The team will begin play in the 2026 season in Toronto under the ownership of Larry Tannenbaum of Kilmer Sports Ventures, which is a subsidy of Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, who owns the Maple Leafs and the Raptors. League Commissioner Kathy Engelbert expressed confidence in the team's success and potential to inspire and support the Toronto area community and across the whole country of Canada. As of right now, games are set to be played at the Coca-Cola Coliseum in Toronto, along with Scotiabank Arena, and also some barnstorming by the Canada-based franchise, with other games planned for Montreal, Quebec, and Vancouver, British Columbia. Commissioner Engelbert also plans to expand the league to 16 teams over the next few years, with the list of potential markets including Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Portland, Oregon, Nashville, Tennessee, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Denver, Colorado. As I already alluded to, the Golden State Valkyries are the league's 13th club. They'll begin playing in 2025 at Chase Center in San Francisco, California. It's very hard to diminish the WNBA's growth this season. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, I get it. But because of the superstar players who have come into this league now, the likes of Clark, the likes of Reese, the likes of Camila Cardoso, the influx of money that has been poured in by numerous companies to advertise and sponsor the league, the new media deals that they have in place as well right now between ESPN and ABC, Ion Television, CBS Sports. And now, though, folks, 2 new teams come into the WNBA in the next 2 years for the first time since, I believe, 2008, that the league has added a franchise, when they added in the Atlanta Dream, and also then the Chicago Sky came in a year later, I believe. Kathy Engelbert deserves to get her flowers here. This is a league that I know, folks, has been the target of so much criticism over its 20-plus year existence. But now I think it's hard now to rail against the WNBA and not take this league seriously now. Because now this league, I think, is doing it the right way. I talk a lot, folks, about this league's history, about how it went from 8 teams in 97 to then when the league grew too quickly after 97. They added the teams in Portland and in Miami and in Orlando and Sacramento and in places like that. And they were 3 years and done. You know, a great friend of mine, Reagan Patrick, who used to be on my women's basketball podcast, Reagan would talk about how soccer would do that on the women's level. They have the 3-year curse. They would start up, and then 3 years later, they'd be out. But now, though, folks, Toronto, Canada becomes the next team involved with the WNBA. This is after, folks, the LA Sparks played the Seattle Storm, I believe, in Edmonton, and the game was sold out at Rogers Arena up in Edmonton. Kia Nurse, who is a Canadian superstar playing in Los Angeles, had family and friends there. The whole province practically felt like came out, though. But also, it's about people like Larry Tannenbaum and Joe LaCobe, rich owners of other franchises in the NBA or NHL. They now want in on this league. And this is a tremendous step forward for a league that is right now, I think, finally turning people onto the product. This week is when the league launched their new charter flight program after years and years and years of ongoing strife between the players and the league about chartering flights. But again, now people want to invest in the product. Is it because of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and all the rookies who have really, I think, turned the league on its head? Absolutely. But now I also think, though, that now people finally and mercifully are no longer giving the double bird or turning their nose away at women's sports. Earlier today, folks, on Thursday, the Professional Women's Hockey League, the PWHL that launched operation this year, was named, I believe, by the Sports Business Journal as the Breakout League of 2024. That league had records broken every other week for games that were played in their 6 markets. Now, yes, they were traditional hockey markets, like I said earlier on Press Row months ago when the league began. But now I love this ambitious plan, though, by Larry Tannenbaum. This is Toronto's team playing at Coca-Cola Coliseum and at Scotiabank, but we want to make this Canada's team. So Vancouver, we're coming your way. Montreal, we're coming your way. Now, will that be regular season games? Could it be a hybrid where they play between certain buildings and cities to get the league exposure across the country? I like the idea, actually, for year number 1 when they come into play in 2 years. And I also love, though, how Kathy Engelbert is handling expanding this league ever so slowly. She is not pulling a David Stern card or Mark Tatum card of putting up 8 new franchises and they all fizzle out after 3 years of operation. So probably, folks, I'd say by 2028 or 2030, the WNBA becomes a 16-team league. I have one small gripe, though. And Front Office Sports actually touched base on this in a story about the expansion. How in the world is Houston, Texas not on this list? The Houston Comets were the dynasty of the early years of the league, winning 4 straight championships. Notable players, sellout crowds at Compaq Center and at Toyota Center before the team folded. Houston has to be a market you go back to. I love that Portland's on here because I don't think that Portland basketball fans really got to really get behind the Portland Fire in the early 2000s. They were in and out in 3 years. Philly might be a bit of a hard sell, but I know it could be like a nice little, some bait to put out there for Don Staley, Philadelphia native, to come and leave South Carolina to coach the team in Philadelphia. Nashville would be interesting. Again, it's a hotbed being around Tennessee women's basketball for the Lady Vols. And I like Milwaukee being involved too. And I also love Denver. But how is Houston not on this list? How is Houston not even on the board when it comes to WNBA expansion, where literally the golden franchise of this league is not even listed as a potential market city? But I'm really excited, though, for the fans in Toronto. I'm very happy for my great colleague Anila Khan, who has been a lifelong basketball fan on the women's side since 2008. She lives up in Canada, and she had been saying for years, "I'd love to have a team here, love to have a team here." And now she gets to be able to have a team now in her market. But again, I also love, though, that Larry Tannenbaum, they want to make this Canada's team. They really want to make this Canada's team. And I love that they're looking outside just Toronto. Vancouver's on the board. Montreal's on the board. You know what might help? This might sound stupid. What if you got Steve Nash to be an investor of the team? Arguably, probably Canada's, in my opinion, most famous men's basketball player of all time. What if Steve Nash jumps on board with this franchise? Already has ownership stake in the Vancouver Whitecaps of MLS. What if you got more big-name Canadian basketball stars that used to play the game on board with this club? To really help the exposure grow, I'd say, for this team. But also, Toronto is a fabulous sports city. The Blue Jays and their run back in the 90s with their back-to-back world titles. The Argonauts are always a very good team with the at this rate with the in the CFL. The Maple Leafs, of course, always draw well at Scotiabank Arena. The Raptors winning their championship in 2019. Like, Toronto is a major hotbed, but I also look at it, though, for being a hotbed once it goes down the road of how the PWHL Toronto franchise was received this year. They were shattering records at Scotiabank and I believe at the Coliseum too. But this, though, was a major win, though, for the WNBA front office. How they have now finally gotten a lot of things done finally when it has boiled down to the charter flights and now league expansion. And now the media rights with where they're at right now. This is an exciting time for this league. And again, hopefully now it gets a lot of you naysayers out there to stop giving this league a double bird and also stop turning your nose away at it. It's not going away. Golden State comes in 2025, and then Toronto comes in 2026. Cannot wait to see how this is going to go over the next several years. Moving over, folks, to name, image, and dislikeness. A major lawsuit has dropped over the past couple days with former Florida football recruit Jaden Rashada suing Florida Gators head coach Billy Napier and a Gator booster for defrauding him out of millions of dollars by backing out of a promised $13.85 NIL million agreement. Jaden signed his national letter of intent to play for Florida back in 2022, less than 1 hour after Napier promised the player's father $1 million in partial payment that day upon him signing. But he never received the $1 million, and the boosters never fulfilled the deal per the lawsuit. He becomes the first known college athlete to sue his coach or a booster due to a dispute over a name, image, and likeness or NIL deal. The lawsuit further alleges several counts of fraud, negligence, and interference with a business contract. The lawsuit further alleges that Florida's pressure campaign came back with an offer of $13.85 million over a 5-year deal and $5.35 million from Hugh Hatchcock, including a $500,000 signing bonus through Velocity Automotive and the remainder paid through Hatchcock's NIL collective Gator Guard. Hatchcock also objected to using his company or the collective to directly fund the NIL payments and worked alongside the athletic department representative Castro Walker to run the money through the Gator Collective, another NIL group with separate management. Rashada withdrew his official intent to play for the Gators on January 18th of 2023 and chose ASU, where his dad once played, and transferred it to the University of Georgia for the upcoming season. You folks know well I'm all for NIL, but it's for stuff like this, though, that I know Brandon has said on this network, not going to fly. And I agree with him, though. I really do, because of the fact $13.85 million in a simple NIL contract and missed opportunities of fulfillment by Florida and also by the collective. This lawsuit, folks, will change the way that I believe NIL deals will be agreed upon. Because all it would take is one person or a group of people or a lawsuit like this to further rattle the cages of college athletics. I don't know where we go from here. With this, folks, and this I think begins a chain reaction now. If memory serves me correct, I believe we had 2 NIL infractions happen over the course of the football season at the very end of the year. I believe Tennessee was popped $8 million in fines, and I believe has also been banned from a bowl game for violating NIL agreements and NIL guidelines. But my colleague Chris Davis and I were talking about this Tuesday night coming home from the bowling alley about this lawsuit. And Chris even said, how do you even police NILs right now? Because there's no set limit on what a deal could be worth. And, James and I talked a little bit too, I believe on Tuesday and even last night on Sports Minute about how it costs, it literally costs coaches money now in college athletics to get the best quarterback on the market. Where I believe, though, that when Brandon said, though, that he wants to see the NIL tied into a scholarship, that I agree with. Again, I believe in NILs for human being reasons. Buying lunch one day after class, getting a ride to work one day, stuff of that nature, not just mooching off of these advertisers who want to sponsor these kids to get commercials on ABC during a football game. But Jaden Rashada certainly has begun the domino effect that I believe that more kids might get screwed in this sort of situation by adults who think they know more than the kid does about what they should be doing with money and also for their careers. That this begins a chain reaction that I think will probably put NILs further and further and further underneath the magnifying glass or the microscope. So who knows, folks, what will happen here at this rate. But certainly I give Jaden Rashada a lot of credit for not being afraid to sue. Because again, this could probably, I think, start this chain reaction where if more kids feel like they're getting screwed, not because of playing time or the coach resigning or being fired or moving on to a new program, but now it has boiled down, though, to dollars and cents in college athletics. And again, he becomes the first known college athlete to sue his coach or a booster due to a dispute over name, image, and likeness deals, citing fraud and negligence and interference with a business contract, again, being promised nearly $14 million over a 4-year deal. But again, though I'm all for NILs, I do worry about more stuff like this happening, where these kids are promised something and someone drops the ball and does not fulfill the promise or obligation. Scary time right now if you are perhaps a athlete trying to work on a NIL contract that it may not be all suited and all goody two-shoes. But once more, folks, former Florida football recruit Jaden Rashada has officially announced his intention to sue Gators head coach Billy Napier and a unknown or unnamed, for that matter, but he is named, though, and a Gator booster for defrauding him of millions of dollars by backing out of a promised $13.85 million NIL agreement. Rashada, again, becomes the first known college athlete to sue his coach or a booster due to a dispute over a name, image, and likeness deal, which, again, the allegations stem from counts of fraud, negligence, interference with a business contract, and alleging that the pressure campaign for Florida came back with the offer over 4 years and 5.35 being a promise from Hugh Hatchcock. But again, a lot of tomfoolery behind the scenes, though. It's being wired through this agency, through this collective agreement. Again, a lot of weird things going on. And honestly, this should be a bit of a wake-up call for college athletes. Proceed with caution when you're working on NIL deals. Because, hey, you could be promised a lot of money here, as we've seen here, and then you may have to sue to get your money. So this is definitely a yellow light, caution, proceed with caution if you're working on a NIL deal right now in college athletics. Let's, folks, move on now over to a interesting story from awfulannouncing.com. Is it fair or foul for sports analysts to publicly display their sports fandom live on the air? Examples, of course, include Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless's hatred of the Dallas Cowboys, Mike Greenberg's Jets fandom on Get Up on ESPN, and Michael Robon's Chicago nativeness. Shows like CBS's Champions League Today often reveal their allegiance of their stars, making them more relatable. However, though, this trend could be both annoying and a distraction. For example, Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals between the Pacers and Knicks, and the pregame coverage drew heavy ire and criticism for leaning heavily on Stephen A. Smith and his Knicks fandom. While, of course, it's acceptable for ESPN to play up Smith's fandom, it's not acceptable, though, to ignore one of the other teams playing in the game. Tony Romo and Troy Aikman's privilege could be offended if they criticized every call against them, and the dividing line between reason and non-reason is a very complex issue. This is a complex issue. You folks can see in my studio here that I have posters up for the Anaheim Ducks and a movie poster from when the movie turned 25. And I have a lineup card from a Padre game where Joe Musgrove, my former youth ball teammate, through the first no-hitter in team history in 2021. I have the John Gibson and Trevor Zegras posters up because I got to announce for them when they played with the San Diego Gulls. And you all know that I very much enjoy talking about my San Diego roots. Born and raised here in San Diego, and I've lived here for my whole life of 30 years. And I'm sure it does get on your nerves, though, when I do bring up the Padres a lot or bring up, the teams I work for or anything involving San Diego, California. And I know that is a distraction, and it does not, and it defeats the purpose of being in front of an audience and talking about sports, because in some roundabout way, I have to compare it to San Diego and my own fandom. But it is, though, that line in the sand. I think more on a national level. If you're on ESPN nationally or on Fox Sports nationally or on the radio nationally, you got to put the jerseys away and the hats away, and you cannot be acting in this manner. Now, if you're on a podcast like me, it's probably fair game. But I think, though, that the prime example of fandom interfering with doing your job certainly came to fruition with that very horrible and train wreck of a pregame show before Game 7 between the Pacers and the Knicks. I mean, if you were not watching that, or if you're watching that as a neutral party, like you have no interest in the game, you would have thought for a minute you were watching Knicks pregame on MSG and not watching the ESPN national pregame, because it was all about the New York Knicks and all about Spike Lee and all about Stephen A. Smith. Then Mike Greenberg openly wearing the Aaron Rodgers jersey on Get Up in the mornings. I think it does not fly on a national network. If you're on local TV or local radio, that's fine and dandy, because you have a job to do to cover your market's team or teams. But on the national platform that you're given, that fandom has to be locked, has to be kept in the closet. No blue and orange for the Knicks, no victory green for the Jets, whatever the green that they have is called, because you are on a national platform. And last I checked, national media means that you give love to every single team. You don't act like Isaiah Leung and pick apart a small market team for making the Eastern Conference Finals. And you sure as hell don't make the national pregame show for Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals all about the New York Knickerbockers. If you're on a local station, absolutely, you drum up hometown support. But if you're Skip Bayless or Stephen A. Smith and you openly share your hatred of the Dallas Cowboys, save that for your podcast. But don't be out here insulting fans of that franchise because you love watching them lose in the postseason. You are on a national platform. Same goes for Mike Greenberg, showing up wearing a Rodgers jersey on Get Up in the morning. I don't think, though, that Michael Rolbon is as bad as the article portrayed him to be. At least, though, Rolbon is always like true and authentic about how he feels about Chicago sports. But he's not out here wearing a Chicago Bulls jersey or a Chicago Sky jersey or a Blackhawks sweater unless it's Halloween. He's not openly out here wearing a Knicks hat or a Jets jersey to openly show where his fandom lies. I agree, though, with bullet point 4. Because I think that shame of a pregame show before Game 7 was annoying and distracting. Like I said, if you were a neutral party tuning into that game and that pregame show, You literally would have thought it was the New York Knicks on MSG pregame show. Yet it was on ESPN. Look, I love Stephen A. Smith and how he can get out of control and he really says what's on his mind. But for goodness sakes, ESPN, you cannot be bowing down to Stephen A. Smith to let him make the entire national pregame show about Game 7 involving New York and Indiana all about the Knicks. Which now I think gives some life now to what Rick Carlisle said, though I put him through the shredder on this damn podcast 3 weeks ago when he talked about the market size of Indiana and New York. But it's more of an annoyance, I think, though, when Greenberg shows up wearing the Jets jersey on Get Up, and then how Skip and Stephen A. absolutely hate the Dallas Cowboys. You know, it's insulting for a national media outlet to really, I think, make fans hate their networks more and more and more. Because you make it only about the major market cities. Again, folks, I know I probably irk you the wrong way when I talk a lot about the Padres and San Diego sports and how this town has not won a major championship since 1963. And I know I probably do irk you the wrong way, and I do apologize for that. And I know that I have worn, jerseys of my hometown franchises on this podcast, but I don't think it's as egregious as me doing it on ESPN or Fox. It's more egregious if it's Colin Cowherd wearing a Seattle Seahawks hat forwards because he hates guys wearing it backwards, for God's sakes. But I think you get where I'm coming from. It's more of a annoyance and distraction and very, I think, irritating if you're a fan, like a Pacers fan who had to sit through that absolute sham and flat-out dumpster fire of a pregame show, that it was only about the Knicks. No mention of Tyrese Halliburton. No mention about the Pacers and how they did in the in-season tournament. No mention about them whatsoever. It was all about the Knicks. It was all about Stephen A. and Spike Lee and all these, New York, media pundits. But again, though, how do you at ESPN let that crap fly? Is more about what I think has irked me the wrong way. Now, again, you can easily say, well, hey, you've worn soccer's jerseys on your podcast. You have done this. That's a whole different story. I'm talking about if I was actually working for ESPN or Fox or any major media market or media station, I should say, on a national level. If you're on that national level echelon, you give respect and love to every team out there. You don't show bias towards just the Knicks and the Lakers and the Celtics. You got to show love to Oklahoma City and Minnesota and Dallas and other teams who made the postseason in particularly in the NBA. And also the third to last bullet point is so great too. It's acceptable for ESPN to play up Stephen A's fandom, but it's not acceptable. Zero tolerance to totally ignore the Indiana Pacers. That is why I dread when the Padres play on national television against the Dodgers, the Braves, some other big name MLB franchise, because I know damn well that crew is going to be all about the Dodgers. Yeah, the Padres, whatever. Yeah, they're barely 500, yada, yada, yada. But look at the Dodgers. Let's look at the Dodgers. Los Angeles, California. Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman. That's more about what pisses me off, though, with national media 9 times out of 10, is you have to make it. Do you really have to make it all about Los Angeles, Dallas, Chicago, New York, Boston? That's more where I think we all agree here. Is that if you're on a national platform, ESPN, Fox Sports, or any channel out there, national radio dials, national TV airwaves, you got to put the jerseys in the clothes hamper and put the hats back on the rack, put the suit and tie on, and be neutral to both parties involved. But to have the utter audacity to make your national pregame show all about the New York Knickerbockers and totally eradicate, ignore, and really disrespect the Indiana Pacers and that fan base does not fly with me. Again, if you want to warrant your criticism to me for wearing San Diego gear on this podcast, feel free to do so. But I think, though, it's a different set of standards. I sit in this chair Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I get paid $0 to be on this network. And I can practically wear whatever I want as long as I have a shirt on. Captain America today, in case you're wondering. But if I'm getting paid by ESPN on the national level, my Padre brown and gold and Angels navy blue and red and my Anaheim Ducks orange and black is going to be left in the closet. And I will go into my armoire right next to my computer desk here and grab a striped collared shirt and a tie and wear that. I'm not going to act like Mike Greenberg's dumbass practically and put a Jets jersey on to root for Aaron Rodgers and openly spew malarkey about the Jets. I'm not going to sit here like Stephen A. and Skip to totally talk about how much I hate the LA Dodgers. I'll be more like Mike Rolbon and talk about San Diego in general. But I will not go as far if I was on a national network to actually wear my Steve Finley 1998 Padres blue alternate jersey on the national airwaves. So I agree that it's a complex situation, but it's as simple as that. National media equals everybody. Local media equals the San Diego Padres, San Diego State Athletics, the Gulls, the Sockers, Strike Force, Seals, Legion, Growlers, you name it. Podcast outlets, it could be anything and anybody. But for the national media to resort to that makes no damn sense. Because it is an annoyance, a distraction, and it's utter disrespect to that fan base in Indianapolis with how ESPN totally ignored that the Knicks were playing the Pacers in Game 7. But it was all about Stephen A. and all about Spike Lee and all about the Knicks. Can't do that on a national platform. That should go back to Journalism 101. Neutral and unbiased. I was taught that lesson a long, long time ago when I first broke into hockey broadcasting by Steve Balaban in 2009. Neutral, unbiased, unopinionated when you're calling a game. That same standard should be going right now, too, back to the national media. Can't be throwing parades, can't be wearing team attire to show love for your hometown team on a national platform. It's annoying, distracting, and it's utterly disrespectful. Big shout out to my good man, Jack Braun, tuning in today. Again, Jack, you are the man again, once more showing up here at round 154 in the afternoon here today for Press Row. Let's move on, folks, now to the final story here. Wowzer, a very rough time for the relaunch of the Arena Football League. The Georgia Force, a team in the AFL, faced a series of financial difficulties after their first game of the season. The Force could not produce footballs, pads, let alone helmets, and had to rely on local sporting goods stores or the league opponents to help them out. Force team head coach Duron Rockmore threatened to leave the club if players were unhappy about their unpaid salaries. The league, which relaunched in February of this year or last year, after 3 years of being stuck in dormancy, is again facing mounting growing frustrations about the unstable finances, subpar playing conditions, and the failures of the league front office. Coach Rockmore's claim was that the team was folded and they had no money to pay him, or the players was met with anger from players on the Georgia franchise. Two unnamed players claimed that Coach Rockmore had been paid in full, citing his payment as a reason for their faith in the AFL and the Georgia Force's long-term prospects. The players have also organized a GoFundMe campaign to help them to help stranded teammates, with Force kicker Craig Camey seeking an attorney and potentially organizing other players to sue the Arena Football League. Journeyman quarterback Justin Arth expressed his frustration and desire to prevent similar situations from happening again. The players are also determined to ensure that the situation does not happen again and that arena football is not a place for such adversity. Chris Mabry, folks, hit the nail on the head. 6 out of the original 16 teams have folded. The league that started my football journey is bad and in dire straits. I, folks, have worked in arena football off and on in my time in sports. I worked for the LA Kiss for a couple of years doing stats, and now I help out with the San Diego Strike Force in the Indoor Football League. Indoor football and indoor soccer, folks, are both very intertwined. Both these leagues had their glory days, and these leagues start, they stop, they fold, they go away, and then they come back, and it's nowhere close to where it's at, or even where it was. Sammy Sharp, a former colleague of mine over at a former podcast network, now has his own indoor football podcast called Pro Arena Talk. I don't do a whole lot for them except let them know about what's going on in San Diego with the IFL team here, and some other stuff. And I actually sent them the story that FOS put out about what the Georgia Force endured. It is, folks, a very eye-opening story. But also, I believe this brings up the question, when is enough in a league like indoor football? Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, there's like 5 or 6 different indoor leagues right now, and the IFL is probably the king right now of indoor football. Folks, the Arena League had their run. They had their run when they had the LA Avengers and the Rattlers in Arizona and the Philadelphia Soul and the Jacksonville Sharks and Tampa Bay Storm and even the Georgia Force and the Cleveland Gladiators. But when, though, is enough? When, though, does the hammer come down and just say, look, enough is enough. Stop trying to make this a thing. And I think, folks, it is laid out right here in plain lettering. It's about a lot of different things, folks. Finances are one thing. We're also talking about player safety. The Oregon Black Bears, who play up in Oregon, have literally been using rodeo fencing. Not even the hockey boards, rodeo fencing on the field of play with hardly any padding. And sadly, folks, the Georgia Force sound like those foam scams that go around. Justin Arth and Craig Camey really put their faith and trust in the Georgia Force franchise, and they got scammed. They got scammed in a very insulting and bad way. And folks, I really invite you to read the front office sports story from the Georgia Force. 4 players came out and really talked about the conditions. And Chris agrees with me that the Indoor Football League is currently the king right now, and definitely the king right now of the indoor football world. And I feel horrible for these players who are trying to still make their football journey a thing. But this is really, though, like they said in the story, the players called this league and this team a semi-pro operation. No money. Yeah, it's coming. Talk to the commissioner's office. being stranded in Odessa, Texas after a game. Nobody has money to buy food or dinner after the game is over. To the point they had no equipment to even run through practices. It's more along the lines of not the Georgia Force. It's about the Arena Football League. When will you realize that your luck has run out? You had your glory days. It's time to stop operation across the board. And like Chris said, 6 of the 16 teams have folded shop. I know that Sammy Sharp and his crew at PAT are really following this very closely. I follow it a little bit because I work in indoor football. But our league, though, the IFL, and by the way, Chris and myself will be facing each other on Sunday when the Strike Force hosts the Frisco Fighters here in San Diego at 3:05 in the afternoon. But I just think it's time for the AFL, the Arena Football League, to finally just give it up. 6 of your teams already folding. So much infighting. The calls for Lee Hutton, the former commissioner, to resign. And he did. And now with Jeff 7-9 Fisher now being the head coach, or now being the commissioner, I should say, I think it's just time for them to finally just give it up. You know, they had a chance for NFL Network to show games on television. That fell through early in the season. But then you hear stories like this. Let's take the player aspect out of this. The human being portion of this is what pisses me off. The money's one thing about these guys not getting paid, but their health and safety has been totally thrown out the window. The Oregon franchise playing with rodeo fencing. Like the actual rodeo fences that keep the bulls in until they release them during bull riding. That's their safety barrier for the players from the stands. And the fact that some of the biggest AFL names are around, though, but in other leagues like the IFL, the AFL has no standing ground. And I don't even think Jeff Fisher can fix this. I really think that by year's end, or by their season ending, the AFL will be dormant again for probably the next 3 years, and they'll try it again. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Let's stop trying to make the Arena Football League work, and let's let the Indoor Football League become what the AFL could have been, should have been, and would have been. I think the IFL is adding 3 new teams next season to go to 19 or 20 teams. But I feel absolutely horrible for the players of the Georgia Force. I give the 4 players who talked to FOS so much props and credit for exposing this league and exposing this shame of a franchise for the mistreatment. And I hope that these guys sue and that they win. You know, not being paid is one thing. The travel conditions of guys who cannot even get back to their hometown, guys that have called off their regular daytime jobs to travel for these games. And honestly, I hope that, and honestly, I hope every player of the AFL sues this damn incompetent commissioner's office and also sues Lee Hutton, who was the commissioner before he was told to resign, because they have mismanaged this whole entire operation from day one. But also, when you don't have any big-name franchises The Philadelphia Soul were playing with replacement players from another team in the league. The Rattlers have been in the IFL for a long time recently. Again, that's why I said that indoor soccer and indoor football are so much intertwined. You all had your runs already. And for the Arena Football League's case, you had your run already. You had exposure on NBC at one point, yes, with the LA Avengers. But you had your run. Stop trying to make this league work now in 2024. The Indoor Football League has surpassed you in so many different ways, it's pathetic. I think that league is at 14 teams. They're going to go to 18, I think, within the next 2 to 3 years. But I hope that these players sue and that they win. And they are given so much money for damages for the travel, the unsafe playing conditions, the travel woes that they had. It's what a sham. A shame of a league and a shame of an organization. Just AFL, give it up, please. Save the football fans and football employees like myself who work in the Indoor Football League. Please give it up. Like Chris said, you've lost 6 teams already this season. You will probably be losing more because they can't afford to run these franchises right now at this rate. And again, folks, I really invite you to read the Front Office Sports story. It's a very long read, but a very great read, though. And again, I give a lot of props and respect and love to the 4 players from Georgia, including Justin Arth and Craig Cammey, who went out there and really, made their thoughts known about what a sham and scam this league and this club was. And I mainly feel bad for the fact of guys who want to still make football their football careers work. And it never came to fruition in Georgia. Pitiful, despicable, insulting, sickening. It's absolutely horrible that we saw this even come to fruition. With that, folks, we have a media advisory for you folks here. Again, we talked about this a little bit over the past couple days. And as you probably heard me, though, talk about late last night on Sports Minute, that we are right now, or we were negotiating with the newly formed Elite Draft League here in San Diego for men's inline roller hockey to become their proud home of a podcast that was voted on by you, the viewers out there, and by friends of mine, too. And, folks, again, I will let you know again that we are, in fact, going to be having this podcast. And I can officially confirm as of 12:45 p.m. Pacific time today, May 23rd, 2024, the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network will be the exclusive streaming home of Puck and Roll, which will be covering this new hockey league here in San Diego coming up in June on Fridays and Sundays. We're starting up our league, folks, with tryouts on Saturday. We will have gameplay in late June. But I did, though, folks, have a very nice meeting today with Josh Fontaine, who is the organizer and league commissioner of the EDL, or the Elite Draft League. And Josh was excited about the project. He was really surprised, I think, about the response that we had gotten for the name and the logo and all that good stuff as well. And, folks, I am very proud to announce that Coast to Coast will be the exclusive home, along with either the league's Facebook page or the league's YouTube channel, to really to be the home of this platform. And even better, folks, we're going to be having we are going to be working on a in-game promotional read, and we're also going to be having a lot of flyers as well at our home games, or at our games here in San Diego, to get the word out about the podcast and also get Coast to Coast more love. So a major thank you to Josh Fontaine and the Elite Draft League for getting on board with our project here and for allowing Coast to Coast to be now the official home, as of today, officially official, that Puck and Roll will be the official podcast of the Elite Draft League here in San Diego, and also be the exclusive streaming platform for the podcast on Fridays and Sundays come June. And I am very, folks, ecstatic about this. And again, I really want to thank, though, our upper management here at Coast to Coast, Brandon, Adam, and Jason, and Dave, and Joanne, and Tim, for allowing this to become a thing. Because I know that right now we've been having, as we said, folks, some problems, or again, some personal, again, stuff away from the network right now involving Adam and his wife. Right now, again, we're wishing IME all the best going forward. But we are, folks, extremely proud to announce that today here on Press Row and also on Coast to Coast. We were right on the goal line, basically, and today we ran it in for the touchdown in football terms. But in our case, we scored the empty net goal in hockey terms here today and got this to the finish line. And I'm very proud, folks, and ecstatic and just super stoked to get this project running here. And again, I really want to thank, though, Coast to Coast upper management again, J-Mac and Adam and Mess Around, Big B and Chris, and the rest of the Coast to Coast family for allowing this project to come to fruition and to give this league and this sport and this roller hockey community here in Southern California and in San Diego a lot of publicity. Because the thing I talked about, folks, with Josh in our meeting today is that the roller hockey community here in Southern California is very shallow. Ice, as I said, though, folks, here, that the sport has grown a lot here since the 60s into the 90s and now here in 2024. But also locally in San Diego, with how the weather is every year, though, or all year, we don't have enough access to roller hockey or roller hockey rinks in the county. We have 5 rinks, I think, in town, and our home rink will be up in Escondido, California, roughly about 35 or 40 minutes north of where I live in the city. And we are trying our best to really make this league be something that the roller hockey community and the San Diego hockey community can be proud of. Like, we're starting from square one, getting this thing started. And the podcast idea came to me, folks, really on Sunday. And then Monday, Tuesday, and yesterday, we had overwhelming responses. As I said here on Tuesday and on Wednesday, 50-plus people voted for the logo, and 30-plus people voted for the name, all within a 72-hour stretch and span. And then I ran the idea for the podcast through C2C admin. And I am so grateful again for all of them for getting on board. I said, hey, this could really help out the network brand. I have ideas for flyers around the rink with QR codes for the podcast and for the network. We can probably get a commercial spot in during the course of game action and stuff like that. And everyone signed off on it. And I am so, so grateful that they did. And we are, again, folks, proud to announce that Puck and Roll, the weekly podcast covering the Elite Draft League, a brand new upstart men's roller hockey league here in San Diego, Coast to Coast will be the official streaming platform and host site, along with the EDL Facebook or YouTube channel, coming up this summer. And I'm so, again, thrilled to be a part of this project and be a part of this league. Josh and I, again, had a very great meeting today at around 12 noon, and we are both just so amped to get started here with this project and get started with the league. And we are looking forward, folks, to our late June start date of getting it started and whatnot, and all of that. But again, really, though, again, just really once more, again, I've been a broken record, folks, but again, really just want to, again, say thank you so much again to Chris, to Dave, to Jason and Adam, and to Joanne and the entire network admins for allowing this to come to fruition and really help grow our portfolio, but also help get a sport like roller hockey. And also, and especially in a great market like San Diego, I know I'm going against what I said in the whole thing about, hometown, talking about your hometown on a platform. But also when it's a sport like roller hockey that really it's played in San Diego, but not to the extent, though, of ice hockey. This can only help our league, can help our players, help out the league front office, and also, again, help out Coast to Coast in so many different ways, folks, that I am just, like I told Josh, I am ready to run through a wall with the league as their in-game announcer and run through a wall now with this podcast coming here to Coast. And that, folks, is our media advisory coming your way here today. Once more, that again, Puck and Roll is coming official today to cover the Elite Draft League here in San Diego. So, folks, we'll actually have a formal announcement on our Instagram page and on our Facebook page within the next couple of hours or so here and whatnot. And we look forward to being a great partner in media for the EDL here in San Diego starting up in June. With that, folks in mind, we'll cut out of here for the day. Now, once more, again, everybody would like to again remind you that we are probably going to be that we will probably be shelving Kicking It here this evening to again, in wake of what has gone on right now with Adam and his family. We again are doing our best to give Adam ample time to be with the wife and kids. So we were so with that, folks, we're going to be shelving Kicking It tonight. We might actually, folks, have a more of a better announcement about the podcast for Puck and Roll for the Elite Draft League, perhaps pre-recorded and later on tonight. But we are, again, folks, do advise you to, again, please, if you can, keep Adam and his family in your thoughts and prayers as time goes on, and hoping that Amy, his wife, has a speedy recovery. But a major thank you to Jack and to Chris for joining us today, and thank you, folks, for joining us here this afternoon. We'll catch you folks back here on Friday on Entertainment Hour with James, Randy, and Chris P. Bacon as well, folks. With that in mind, Callan McClurg saying good day from San Diego. Have a great one, folks. Till next time, good day. Bye-bye.